Sandra, Vladimir Putin's war on Ukraine raising nuclear fears as experts say they truly don't know where the Russian president and his fight may lead. Let's bring in Joe Cirincione, Distinguished Fellow at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. He is a national security analyst and author with decades of experience on these issues, one of the most knowledgeable people when it comes to nuclear weapons.
You're very kind, John.
So this is Russia's nuclear arsenal, at least in the western part of the country. And we were talking about this, we were both at the same event on Sunday.
Yes.
We talked about if Putin feels like he's backed into a corner, he has threatened to use tactical nuclear weapons or just nuclear weapons in general. What are the chances of, Joe, if he gets backed into a corner, he pulls the trigger?
Well, that's the danger, ironically. If he is losing the war, the nuclear risks grow. The stakes for him become very high, and he may feel like a gambler at the table who's losing his hand. He's just going to bet the house. And Russian doctrine does allow for something called escalate to de-escalate, to use a nuclear weapon first to try to back off the West if they're losing in a conventional battle.
Now, would he use that against a military post? Would he use it against the civilian population?
Various options are laid out in Russian doctrine, and one is to use it against a military target. There's also speculation you could do a demonstration shot, for example, in the Black Sea, to show your seriousness.
Fire from one of these facilities into the Black Sea to say, this is what I got, back off.
Yeah, or use one of your air-carried munitions to do that from Russian bases here or in Kaliningrad.
Wow, that is frightening. One of the things you mentioned Kaliningrad, because in recent days, 6 MiG-31s carrying what's called this Dagger missile. This is a hypersonic weapon we're seeing flying into Kaliningrad. This can fly like 4,000 miles an hour. It is nuclear capable. It can carry a warhead of about 500 kilotons, which is 33 times the power of the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima. How big of a threat could that potentially be?
Well, then, if you go beyond use of a small yield nuclear warhead to something like this, well, now you're talking about World War III. This is when everything starts to escalate out of control. Something like this would easily take out a medium-sized city, a major military facility. We've passed the nuclear brink if we're talking about use like this.
Now, again, these have been stationed in Kaliningrad, which is right here. It's this tiny piece of Russia that's sandwiched between Poland and Lithuania. They have a range of about 2,000 kilometers, or about 1,200 miles, which would put it basically approximately in an arc like that. So you could hit, with the exception of Madrid and Lisbon, any European capital.
Absolutely. That's why the stakes are so high here. You know, supplying Ukrainian forces with Stingers and Javelin missiles is one thing. Sending planes brings us a little step closer to a direct confrontation. And of course, something like this would be a direct hit on NATO Europe, and that would require a massive U.S. nuclear response.
So this is all terrifying.
Yes.
Do you see an off-ramp here? How does this potentially end?
Well, this is the closest we've been to nuclear war since the early 1980s, when there were mass demonstrations in the street and when both sides were afraid of it. So what that tells you is that you've got to arrive at some kind of diplomatic solution here. It's possible that either Ukraine or Russia will prevail militarily. I consider that unlikely. And so you're looking for an off-ramp. And that's why the statement by Zelensky today that Ukraine would no longer seek NATO membership, at least put that on hold, is one step towards that kind of diplomatic solution. You've got to find a solution that gives Putin some of what he wants and Ukraine some of what they want.
We'll see if there's any movement on this. Joe Cirincione, it's great to see you again.
Thank you, John.
Today. All right. So there's the nightmare scenario, Sandra. Let's hope it doesn't come to that.
Indeed. And to that point, Larry Kudlow, when he just joined us, he said no longer